My name is Mandy Pullenbar. I am one of Vesta's concierge specialists. I've been with the organization for 6.5 years, and it is really an honor and a privilege to be able to support people while they're on their divorce journey, really getting to know our community on a personal level and helping them build a roadmap forward. And a lot of times during those conversations, we also begin to talk about what is life going to look like on the other side of this, which is what our conversation is going to be about. This presentation is educational in nature and it doesn't create any sort of professional client relationship. We do ask that if you want to work with one of these dynamic women, you set up a consultation and they can get into their fee agreement and how things work to work with them. And I will also put contact information if you would like to speak with me from the lens of the concierge. I encourage you to take notes so that you can ask questions in your follow-up consultations with these amazing professionals. I am going to turn it over to my colleagues, and Robin is going to be getting us started.
Great. Thank you so much, Mandy. And thank you all for joining us today. And good afternoon. And thank you for sharing your lunch with us. This is such an important topic. And if you're on the pre-divorce side, we completely recognize that you're probably hoping for some downtime, a time to just breathe and move forward with other things. But there are some important financial and legacy estate planning items that need to be taken care of so that you can be fully protected and take control of your financial future. So a little bit about me. I don't know, Mandy, if you could slide that forward. But I'm a partner in North Star Financial Planning. I've been helping clients for over 35 years beyond the financial planning and wealth management field. My specialty is helping clients who are experiencing these major life transitions. And divorce is a major life transition. Which change happens, which is when you sign the document legally, but the transition now is part of what's happening for you. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a few moments. Anything else let me say about me? So we serve clients nationwide. We do Zoom or in person. That's a little bit about North Star, and you have our website there if you want to check out. So it takes a little bit for this presentation to load. So it's going to start with the first question. So some of the events materials that you might have received is a question on what's the one mistake that most people make in the first 12 months of being newly divorced. And Mandy, if you click it a couple times, the answer will come up. And the answer to that is spending emotionally. And I imagine that you all know this, but when you're in a divorce transition, I imagine that your emotions are high. It could be anger, it could be excitement. If you're the one initiating the divorce, it's overwhelm and stress. So if you imagine trying to make financial decisions when you're in that big emotional state, things can go wrong really fast. So we are going to talk a little bit about some of the strategies to help you step back a little bit from things that you don't have to make decisions right away. And then if you will click that slide one more time, because what we know, research has shown, is that emotions drive decision making. So in a non-heightened environment and where you are completely grounded in your goals, your priorities, your values, having some emotion around your decision making might be that then might help you move forward. But in this environment, when you're divorced or divorcing and there's so much up in the air, you're going from a coupleship to managing a household on your own, and maybe for the very first time, then everything, the ground beneath you is shifting, and it's really not the best time to be making big decisions. So when you can, one of the best ways to help you avoid regret is what I like to do, saying to go around the rotary, but pause and make a list of the things that need to happen now, things that need to happen soon, and what can wait till later. The other thing that I would recommend during this presentation is taking out a piece of paper or your cell phone and making some notes about things that might be triggering you, things that you might be thinking of as I'm talking about spending emotionally. Are you overspending? Are you avoiding making progress on your divorce decree items because maybe you don't want to deal with an ex? because maybe it's too challenging, maybe there's a business involved and kids involved. There are a lot of reasons why people don't move forward or that they don't get the help that they need. And if you decide to do that, and that is a decision that you're making, you could be sacrificing your financial security and creating a lot of the long term. So the recommendation is to pause, sort and prioritize, and then think about the fact that how you feel today may not be how you feel a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Working with a team. So one of the reasons that I'm involved in that organization is because Vesta is amazing. It brings together the professionals that you need to make these big decisions post-divorce and collaboratively. So we're going to be talking more about that in moving forward. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, it takes a second to learn again. One of, as I mentioned earlier, my specialty is helping people through major life transitions, which divorce is, because transition have 3 phases, which is the next slide, which is ending. You find the paperwork legally, that's your ending. And now you have this transition phase until you can get to that new life, right? You have the ending phase, which is the phase that you can avoid making big decisions until you reestablish, who you want to be, and as you take control on your life. The passage phase is more about exploring your life option and seeing what's possible and starting to get your financial pieces in place, your estate plan, and other things. The new beginning is that phase where you're fully engaged in your new life, thriving, and really moving toward a really wonderful future. So that is the journey that we help our clients on in terms from the personal standpoint and financial. So which is the next point here on the slide, which is there are really 2 sides of money and 2 sides of this divorce transition, because money is both personal and physical. So you could have a perfectly great answer financially, but someone's not moving forward with it. They're not moving forward getting their estate plan done. They're not moving forward and transferring that account into their own name. And there could be a lot of personal reasons for that, right? That they're struggling emotionally, dealing with an ex. They may not have a trustee or someone that can help them get their estate plan done. So part of, as a financial advisor, my job in helping clients make decisions about their life around their finances is understanding both pieces. What is going on? So what is going on for you today? Making a list of the things that you find challenging, the things personally that might be shifting. How are your values shifting? Do you want to bring forward the traditions, the values that your family or your couple should have pre-divorce into your post-divorce world? So what's going on here? So I'm going to try to weave some of this throughout the presentation to give you a better sense of how that can impact your decisions. So life after the agreement. So now we're going to focus on some of the technical side of what that looks like for you. So these are some of the things that we're going to cover. So restructuring your financial life, investment through retirement and taxes. Now I'm going to pass out over to Laurie to talk about the estate plan and projecting the future. So more about estate pieces. And I don't remember what this question is. It's another question just to get you thinking about the personal side and where you are in your divorce transition. Yeah, so are you feeling financially invisible? And this can really resonate with someone who has not been in control of the finances pre-divorce, who's going to be the head of making all these financial decisions on their own moving forward. And with that, there can be some delay in taking control of accounts. You have to hit the button again, Mandy, sorry. Building your credit and creating an income plan and bringing assets into your own name. Those things will help you become more financially visible and more empowered about making decisions. And you are going to need help around this. And so we're going to talk about some of that help when we. So there can be a gap post-divorce where people get stuck. And again, think about how overwhelming all of this can be if you've never done it before. And you're going from a two income source, possibly, now to having two separate households to fund. And you might have done some cash flow planning pre-divorce for the legal process, but may not have done the real cash flow around how are you actually going to live? What is the life that you actually want? And how are you going to? So we're going to talk about that, creating a paycheck and some of the tax implications, not securing your assets. In the divorce decree, there are many assets that have timelines and things that have timelines that you have to pay attention to. And if you don't, you could be missing out on a good portion of what's entitled to you. Markets move. There are a lot of things that happen. Risk tolerance, this could be higher with your ex's plan than you want it to be. And so getting things under your control is so important. And then lastly, not a coordinated plan. Every day with my clients, we're calling the CPA, we're working with insurance agents, we're working with people like Laurie to make sure that all the loose ends are tied up and that the plan is coordinated and flows. So you don't want to leave gaps that could really cost you your family's financial security. If you don't put in that life insurance policy, you rename your beneficiaries function, which Laurie was going to talk about. So the first thing is you have your divorce decree all signed. And although I know you want to put it in a drawer and probably never look at it again, you need to do a full inventory of what's in there. What are you getting? What should your asset schedule look like post-divorce? Where is it now? And what steps do you need to gain control of those? And that for sure is an area that I work with my clients on, helping them contact the custodians and making that list and checking things off and adding timelines to the process. At the end, we are going to share a checklist with you if you'd like that. We're going to make that available to you on the account piece. And I'm going to talk more about that in a minute. But check how assets will be valued upon transfer. A divorce decree could say a number of different things about does it get transferred on the date the decree was signed, does it get valued on the date the decree is signed, or does it get valued on the date it's transferred? So knowing how those assets will come to you will help you building your plan for your future. Retitling the deed on the house. If you kept the house, you want to make sure that's retitled. You most likely work with your estate attorney, someone like Laurie, the vehicles. So all those little loose ends need to be pulled into your purview so that you can systematically go through and start doing some of these things if you haven't done that yet. And I really think to sort and prioritize, because this could easily take a year for someone to get through all of this. And also depends on the other parties, because the ex-spouse has to sign off on a bunch of the stuff, and that process isn't always easy. So you're going to possibly need to open some new individual accounts. If you have a joint checking and saving, and you're splitting that, and you need to open your own account to do that. And so what bank and banking system do you want to use? You want to definitely close credit lines. You don't want any liability from your ex-spouse showing up in your credit history. And then you want to make sure you establish your own credit for any loans that you might be looking at, and just to ensure that nothing has been opened by anyone else. So that's just an identity theft protection piece as well. And then maintaining your lifestyle. So these are the things that you should think about right away, I would say. So you want to know where your income's coming from. How are you going to live day to day? So are you getting alimony? Are you getting child support? Are you at the age of receiving Social Security? Are you getting happy with your spouses, or you're taking your own? What are your fixed expenses and your lifestyle expenses? That will help you as you move forward, make decisions. If budget is an issue, or if you need to pull back your spending, it's easier to identify where to pull back. The 3 to 6 month emergency fund is a top priority. There are some ways to create that from assets, and taking some cash from your settlement, or even if you've had to use retirement funds, there are some ways to do that. So I'll get that too in the case at the end. And then account for one-time divorce costs, Legal fees, it's expensive to divorce, as I'm sure you all know. And they're making sure you have some cash to pay those bills on the other side of divorce. So making sure there's some liquidity in your overall financial plan would be an important thing to consider, and any credit card costs, things like that. Resetting spending for single, income households. We're going to talk about that when we talk about financial planning. Right? If you're managing a house on your own and you've not been the one managing the house on your own, there's lots of expenses and capital improvements that you might need to account for in your spending plan to make sure that you have the funds needed and available, building that in. And then how are you going to access the funds? Which bucket are they coming from? Are they coming from my shopping account, or are they coming from my investment portfolio, or are they coming from alimony, child support? Where is it all going? So we're going to talk about those buckets and the tax implications of how to get the dollars out. That is a great place to start if you're thinking about student items. Okay. So let's take a deep breath. I know that was a lot of information. I'll give you a second just to note anything that resonated with you before we get to the asset division. So this is where we're looking at your investment accounts and your retirement accounts. So if the divorce decree says that you're going to get a portion of your ex-spouse's retirement plan, employer retirement plan, then you're going to need a budget. And as it states there, it's a qualified domestic relation order, and that's typically drafted by address specialist. Could be your divorce attorney. More often than not, I see it stated in the divorce decree as specialist, maybe with a name, maybe not, but it's a legal document that gets handed to the employer that tells them how to split that account, 401k or through the pension. And that cost of drafting that legal agreement is generally shared by both parties, and both parties have to sign off on that agreement with whoever is drafting it. So that process in and of itself takes a bit. So starting that as soon as possible after signing the divorce decree could be important to you if you need some of those assets to live on. So it's about, yeah. So generally, whatever you're receiving is going to get rolled over into your IRA, and you want it to go trustee to avoid any tax penalties, or just you don't want to get taxed on any of that money. You only want to pull it out when you need it, right? So you want it to go into an IRA that you may need to establish for yourself to accept those funds. And timing matters. Delays can cost you benefits. Again, I would get on that. You don't know how that money's invested. You just want to get it in your name so that you can have some control over that for yourself and get it invested in whether that makes sense for you and your family. IRA is the second bucket that you'll have to deal with. If you're getting a portion of your ex-spouse's IRA, you do not need a QDRO. Generally, you could contact the custodian directly, send them a copy of your divorce decree, and they will split that account according to the divorce decree. They will need the ex's signature and for them to be compliant with that process. So again, you want to make sure that you get on that as quickly as possible. And I'm helping my clients call the custodian and doing the right paperwork. It can be confusing and complex. So get someone on your team that can assist you with that if you need help. So help is out there for sure. And they might make you set up an IRA at the custodian where your spouse's IRA is. Generally, that's the easiest way. We can just transfer from their IRA to your IRA there. Then you transfer it out wherever you want it to ultimately be. You can close that account. That's generally how that works. And you also want to avoid having a check sent to you if possible, so that you don't have to worry about the tax piece, because you only have a certain amount of days to get that into an account. Again, you can just do the trustee transfer. That will avoid taxation on those funds. And then, of course, you want to update, if you're doing this process, your beneficiary designations, and hopefully in collaboration with your estate plan. But if not, having something temporary, just to, if you're naming your kids, for instance, or if you have a trust, something in there to at least ensure that there's nothing in there saying it goes to your ex-spouse. And then bank and brokerage accounts. So as I stated earlier, if you have joint, those will need to be closed. You might need to open accounts to set up automatic payments. If you're getting alimony, child support, or if you're giving alimony or child support, those things have to be set up and readjusted. And then you want to coordinate any sort of the divorce decree sends that you're getting a certain portion. You're going to again need to contact the custodian to get those transfers to happen. They're going to want to copy the divorce decree. And those things can take time, and the valuation on those accounts, on all of these accounts, should be stated in the decree. All those things will be valued and when. So making sure that when you receive those assets, that it ties to the divorce decree and what was agreed upon, so that you can make sure you're receiving what is due to you. Yeah, so you've got the settlement, but will it last and support the life that you actually want? And this is all about knowing your numbers. Do you know your monthly number? And knowledge is power. Knowledge is power, and knowing your numbers is power. And it's part of that process of going from financially invisible to financially visible. So the first part is understanding where you are financially post-divorce. That was that first part of my talk. This part is more about, now what do I want my life to look? Where do we go from here? How do I create that life that I should want? I am such a big proponent of financial planning, and not creating a one-time static financial plan, but a foundational financial plan that helps you make decisions, that incorporates your goals, your values, your priorities, so that you can determine long-term, here is my assets, here are all of these things, both in the income streams, and will that last my life? What adjustments need to be made? Or can I do more things, or do share my wealth? Like, where am I from a money standpoint? And how can I really use my money as a tool to find what I want in life? Or you may not feel, if you're in divorce process, you may not feel joy, or maybe you do and you can't wait, but money is a tool, and you can really use this to create the life that you want, to start over. You may not feel that way today, but again, how you've been a year from now, 5 years from now. So understanding how what you've had today impacts your future is such an important piece of the puzzle in everything that we're going to talk about here today. So how big impact of divided assets on retirement readiness, right? So if you're working, and you might want to know when you can retire, do you have to contribute to your IRA or 401k? You may not have to, but in order to get having your money last your lifetime, you may need to do some saving. That would all be laid out in the financial plan of the levers that you have. You to work longer, save more, take more rest. So there's lots of levers that you have, but knowing where you are today will help you figure out what lever works for you. And that pension, there are not that many pensions around anymore, but if you have one, there are different ways that those can get paid out to you. So knowing how that's noted in your decree would be important, and you definitely need to do a quadro for that. And that Social Security strategy, is your Social Security higher than 50% of your ex-spouses? Have you been married for 10 years? There are a lot of factors that go into a Social Security strategy that you'll want to make sure that you know what is the benefit that I could expect to receive at my full retirement. And what if you need it earlier, or should you defer to age 70? A financial plan will help you model those scenarios. It will help you model different goals and anything else that you might want to factor in to your long range plan. On the investment side, you definitely want to reassess your risk tolerance. I work with a lot of couples, and where the husband and wife have completely different risk tolerances. And if you weren't the one managing within money, then maybe the risk tolerance doesn't reflect you. I get that. And family history, if there are any bad decisions made in the marriage, then you may automatically want to go in the other direction. But how does that impact your financial plan? So that's where the two sort of are married, is if I don't take any risk, am I really sacrificing my ability to live my life? And if I take too much risk or I don't look at that and markets crash, how'd that plan feel? Knowing where you are today, what's your current allocation, and figuring out where you want to go based on the financial plan is part of that process. Your time horizon may have shifted. And yeah, so we're rebalanced and creating investment policy statement. That's a later, but an important part when you're ready. Great. I have a couple more slides and I want to keep to time. So we're going to fly through this a little bit, but your tax filing status will change. You're very single or head of household, depending if you have dependent children. So if you don't have a CPA, we definitely need to find one, someone who can prepare taxes. I did see in one of the questions that most CPAs aren't doing planning. Your financial advisor, we do the planning, our client can then collaborate with those decisions with the CPA. So it might be something that you could work with a financial advisor on. Alimony and support, generally, post 2018, you don't have to worry about taxes on any of that. Capital gain, we're going to talk about that in a second. And if you're working or if you're not working, taxes, will you owe taxes if you're taking money out of your accounts? If you're working, how should the tax withholdings change? And that should be part of what's on your radar in that first year so that you don't get penalties and aren't surprised with a sudden tax bill. So I've had a lot of cases recently where there's embedded taxes my clients are receiving from the divorce, highly appreciated stock, or they're considering selling their home, but there may be a capital gain. And you just want to understand what those things are so that if you're in the pre-divorce process, that should be part of your settlement negotiations. So if you're getting an account like that and there's a bunch of cash, the cash is worth more to you than having a highly appreciated stock portfolio because you're going to have to pay taxes when you sell those assets. Same with all of those assets listed there. So just make sure you're understanding the assets that you receive. What is the cost basis? And so the CPA, your financial advisor, should be able to help you determine what that is. Creating your paycheck. So this is how I'm going to fund my lifestyle question. So alimony and child support is not taxable. You're going to have ordinary income on those wages, pensions, and self-employment income. Ordinary income, that's when the brackets go up the more you earn. Retirement plan is only taxed when they're fully withdrawn or when they're withdrawn. So if you're transferring money into an IRA, but not taking any money out of that IRA to fund your lifestyle, then there's no taxes due. So, and those are taxed at ordinary income rates. Roth IRA, there's no tax if you're over age 59 and a half, and your contribution is then held for 5 years. So if you're getting a Roth, that's a really good thing to hold for tax purposes, and a lot of people use those for legacy to be like kind of the last bucket that they would touch so that it can grow as that tax benefit is really nice to have. Your Social Security, depending on what you're earning, may be partially taxed, and rental real estate is taxed on the net income of that and your investment in annuities. So it depends on the capital gains embedded in those accounts. Net cash isn't generally taxed because there's not a lot of gain on cash. So when you're creating your paycheck, which bucket is that coming from? How are you going to create a low tax environment for yourself using all of these assets? And that's where tax planning comes in. And if you're receiving alimony and child support, you may not have a need to take anything. So there may not be big taxes, but understanding that not all income is taxed the same is what I want to leave you with. And then to get help on the tax side, figuring out how to structure that paycheck. And lastly, does your financial life still feel married? There are a lot of loose ends that are going to linger post settlement. And if you just flip to the right slide. These are some of the other areas we're not going to focus on today, but I want to make sure that they're on your radar in terms of making sure life insurance, the kids, the college planning. There's some agreement about how that's getting funded, disability income, if you're working and providing for your family, that might be something you need to add. So just ongoing financial review, working with someone who you trust that can help you with all of this if you're not comfortable doing it yourself. So thank you so much for your time. Now I'm going to introduce Laurie, or I'm going to let her introduce, but she's going to walk through estate planning.
I'm on mute. Sorry. Can everybody hear me? I'm assuming everybody can hear me. So my name is Laurie Baron. I'm an estate planning attorney. My offices are in Massachusetts. I have 2 offices. I'll put my information in the chat box, but I serve clients throughout Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Connecticut. And I do, not only do I do estate planning, but I also do divorce mediation and collaborative divorce. I focus on, in my estate planning, helping individuals who are married do an estate plan together, but also upon their divorce, not the same couple, but other people coming in who have just gone through a divorce, they need a new estate plan. I help them do their estate plan. So I'm very familiar with the emotions and the dynamic of individuals who have just gone through that very trying process of going through the divorce and now trying to rebuild. Robin gave a lot of really great information about rebuilding and yourself in your own home and in your new life, your new transition. And she gave some great information and tips on how to do that, just to provide yourself with security. What estate planning is, it's planning for what happens after, when you pass away or when you're incapacitated. So using a financial planner such as Robin for that to help inform those decisions is really key to a solid plan. So I, as an estate planning attorney, work with financial planners to not only figure out what the current situation is, the current financial picture, but what are the potential implications upon death, namely taxes, because a lot of people, not New Hampshire, but Massachusetts, there's a $2 million estate tax. So if your estate is over $2 million, you're going to be charged a tax. And each state is different. So you have to look into your state's tax rules, but those need to be considered in your estate plan. The federal estate tax, I believe it's $13-14 million right now. So most people don't pay estate taxes on that, but I know Oregon for the state is 1 million. States differ. So it's really important that while you're doing your estate planning, you have a really clear financial picture about your current situation, because that'll help determine what type of estate planning you need to do. There's several different types of trusts that are designed to minimize the tax burden on the estate. So it's really important that as part of the full picture of your planning post-divorce, estate planning is one of them. And as I mentioned before, it's not just your death, it's your incapacitation. You're going from 2 households to 1 household. When you're married, the default, if something happens to you, you have a spouse to pick up that burden. Now you don't, you're not married anymore. So if something happens to you, what happens to your finances? Who's in control of them? Estate planning gives you that tool to designate who's in control of that, who has the power to do that. Everyone should have more, especially if you have assets, any amount of assets. It doesn't have to be a lot of assets. It can be $10,000 in the bank. People are under the misconception, I don't have an estate, quote unquote. I don't need a plan. No, any money you do have, any assets you do have needs to be protected. So a lot of people say, I have a will, that's fine. Yes, the will designate upon death who gets what, but it has to go through probate. If you do a trust, it doesn't have to go through probate. So your assets can pass to whomever you want outside of the court's oversight. And the trust in and of itself provides for your incapacity. The will does not. So if you have children and you want to designate who cares for them during your incapacity, assuming the other parent is deceased or unfit, you get to determine who cares for your child. If you don't have that, it ends up going into court, and the court decides who is going to be the guardian of your children, or who's going to manage your funds while you can't manage your funds yourself. So it's really important as a measure of protection to have that in place. It provides peace of mind. It provides an easy transition for your loved ones who might be, will be dealing with either your incapacity or your death, and they won't have to deal with the court as well. So it's a really good protection measure. So I'm looking at the slides here and the beneficiary designation. It's very important that you, and Robin had touched upon this, that you change your beneficiaries. The court's not going to do it for you. So there's a divorce decree, and they're not going to contact your 401k, their service provider. They're not going to contact anybody. It's up to you to do it. So you really need to make sure that those things are in place. Now, sometimes the divorce decree in certain situations, specifically for child support and alimony, might require a life insurance policy to have the ex-spouse as the beneficiary during the support obligation period. So you want to make sure that you're not removing a beneficiary that the court has ordered you to keep. So that's one thing you have to make sure you read your document carefully. But other than that, it's really extremely important that you change all the beneficiaries and move into the portion where it says legal docs untouched. If you don't put in, it's really important that even though the divorce decree states certain things in terms of, so in many states, New Hampshire being one of them, Massachusetts, Connecticut included, power of attorney is automatically revoked once there's a divorce. But if somebody still has a document that says they're the power of attorney and they go to use it, the person that is relying on that power of attorney to do certain things isn't going to have a copy of the divorce decree. So it's really important that you update your documents right away to avoid any potential problems or things slipping through the cracks. For a will, you have every right, and you should specifically disinherit those who you want specifically disinherited. Again, when somebody files, if you pass away and somebody goes to probate and files that will, the court's not going to have a copy of the divorce decree right away. So it's an added measure of protection. Disinherit who you want to disinherit explicitly in the will. For the trust, make sure you put in there who you specifically don't want to receive any funds. It avoids a lot of problems in the end. And that's what estate planning is. It's protection. It's thinking about all the contingencies, what could happen, and trying to avoid them. So number one, avoid probate, but also to protect your wishes and what you want to have happen to your assets. When you're, and getting to this next section with the coordinated plan, when you have children, it's extremely important that during the divorce process, you talk to your spouse, your soon-to-be ex-spouse, and try to coordinate what your separate estate plans are going to be, specifically in terms of guardian for the children should something happen to both of you. Again, it's something that is not an afterthought. It should be part of the process, throughout the process. So when you do finally go to do your estate plan after, you're both on the same page as to what you feel is in the best interest of your children. And it would most likely, if done properly, lead to an easy implementation of both of your wishes and reduce court action or somebody contesting it. So it's really important that you do all that, and not only do that with an estate planning attorney, but have your whole team involved, the financial advisor, your insurance agents. And I, as an estate planning attorney, when I do my estate plans, I do it as a team effort. I'm in constant contact with the financial advisors, with the insurance agents, because I'm an attorney. I know what I know. That's their specialty. They know the ins and outs and things that I may not have thought of that I can then use that information to make a strong, solid estate plan, a trust, a will, even a power of attorney. It's really important that you're supported by your team during divorce and after. And as Robin said, constant reviews of these plans, not only the financial plan that she spoke about, but your estate plan. Life changes. You might get married again. Somebody might get an illness. And so it's really important that you have consistent review, at least a check-in every year, but then a real solid review every 3 years, just to make sure that everything is where you want it to be. Because the estate plan, just like the financial planning, keeps you in control and gives you the empowerment to do things according to the way you want it and not the way a court might decide that it should be done. You can go to the next slide. So I think I've spoken about this. I think I said everything. Oh, the Medicaid planning. Now, I've spoken about the children, if there's children involved, but Medicaid planning is estate planning, and especially is really, for the most part, applicable to gray divorces, meaning divorces for people 15 over. And what that is, if your assets are not protected and you need to use the state's Medicaid program for nursing home services, they could, once you pass away, they could put a claim on your estate to recoup the money. So there are tools out there, that one of them being an irrevocable trust, that can be put in place to protect your assets. There are requirements. There's something called a 5-year look back period. So it has to be done at least 5 years before in order for it to be effective, fully effective. So that's part of the estate planning. And once you get into the area of gray divorces, that's definitely a consideration, not only for your actual estate planning, but for your financial planning going forward, to decide where you need to put your money to protect it. It's really the bottom line of the whole general idea, and the reason for financial planning and estate planning is for protection. You've gotten through the hard part of getting a divorce, which is very difficult in and of itself. And while you have that momentum going in terms of being in that mindset, doing the financial planning and the estate planning should really be done when you're still in that mode, because it's natural for people to want to just put it behind and move on. And it might be too emotionally draining to start all over again. So while you're on that road, you might as well take care of everything at one time and get it done. And then you can really sit back and relax and say, okay, I'm protected now. I just have to review it every couple of years. Now I can really start to heal and move to the next phase of my life. Is there a next slide? Yeah. And I, like I said, I spoke about most of that stuff in the other slides, and I'll just give you a moment to read it, to take a quick check through it. Yeah, it's basically everything I said. You'll have the recording. You'll be able to look it over. And if you have any questions, I just put my information I think I'm trying to put my information in the chat box. There it is. Please feel free to give me a call. I'd be happy to speak further with you about this. And Robin, is there anything else that you would like to say, or?
Yeah, no, that was great, Laurie. Thank you. I was just going to add, I think Mandy is going to offer that investment checklist, which might help keep track of some of the things that you need to do in getting the assets in your name. But I also have a case that will be available in about 2 weeks, that if you want that, you could email me. That is for people who have mainly retirement assets as the asset they're getting. And if you're under age 59, how you might be able to do that penalty free. There's a couple strategies, and I have a case that's just in compliance now. I wanted to be able to share that, but I kind of ran out of time, sorry. But if you're in that situation and you'd like that, feel free to share that. I'm going to put my email in the chat right now. So do we have any questions, Mandy?
We do, yeah. I just wanted to grab that link. And if folks are on a device where they can't access the chat, we'll be sending out a follow-up email with everyone's contact information, with access to Robin's guide that she's generously put together for us, along with the recording. And we do have some questions. Let's see here. Okay. How is my credit affected when I start closing joint credit lines? My divorce is still a negotiation, and we've started establishing our own finances.
Oh, God. Why don't we answer that? I think in general, closing an account can impact negatively your credit report. So it might have a short-term debt. Is my sort of my memory of that. I haven't had that question in a while, but I can certainly get you an answer to that, but I think you might have short-term debt. So but it still needs to be done. So unless you're getting a loan right away, it probably is not a big concern.
I was just going to say that if you were thinking about buying your next home, that you may want to wait, get approved for that first so you don't have that dip.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like our mortgage professionals are really so knowledgeable when it comes to the credit aspect of it because so much of their work depends on that.
Yes.
What is the difference? Oh, we should see if I can answer this. What is the difference between a CDFA, a CPA, a CFA, an RLP, and a CEFT?
Those are the big questions. Can you ask that?
A certified divorce financial analyst,
Yeah.
certified CPA is a certified tax professional, right?
Yeah.
But
So the CDFA has specific training on how to put together settlements in that pre-divorce process. And the CPA is a tax person. Yeah.
and then the CFA is certified financial advisor?
Analyst. So that's
Analyst.
very investment focused, generally no financial planning.
Okay. I don't know what I'm tripped up here. The RLP and the other one.
Yeah, so I'm a registered life planner, and basically it is being able to help people on the personal side. What are your life goals? How do you use your money as a tool? Some of those things that I talked about to help with just transition and just life in general, how to really get aligned and increase that financial well-being, peace, confidence, and move in a direction that you want to move in. And that a CEFC is Certified Financial Transitionist, which is also my training. All the advisors in my firm have this training, and it's how to help people in transition, these major life changes that have both financial and personal, which is, again, a lot of the stuff I talked about earlier. Training on how to work with someone, how to walk hand in hand with them to slow them down and help them recognize where they are in the process and what will help them move forward effectively. What is really blocking? So it's that training with the certified financial planning training. If ideally you could work with someone that can only help you in this transition.
Because I was the one showing the slides today, I didn't realize that we had a hiccup with the poll. So I did just relaunch the poll for those that are looking to just give us a little background because we will be following up with you. The concierge will be, as well as we're going to be able to connect you with our team here today. And then the last question we have, what type of insurance agents are you referring to? Life insurance only?
So for me, we're independent fee only. So we don't sell any insurance products here. We're referring all insurance needs out to professionals that we like to work with. And so that is generally life, disability is one, and then health insurance and Medicare planning is another one we've referred to. If we're helping review personal lines insurance, like if homeowner auto, we're referring to those folks. You really want somebody who's not getting paid from that exchange, so that it's a fiduciary sitting on your side of the table, helping you find the best solution for you.
And you could help offer feedback or insights on what might be, because your relationship with your clients is generational, right? You often end up working with people's children, and then there's you're not that old to be working with people's children, but
maybe two.
But based on what you know about the family, you're probably likely able to advise who might be a good agent to work with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Who's the fit for that client? Sometimes it's location, sometimes it's their communication style and how they will walk someone through the process. And so it really depends on what the client needs and wants.
And actually, Laurie, I don't know if you mentioned it, but one of your specialties is also working with families that have children with special needs that have to have an additional layer of planning involved. Oh, sorry, Frontier.
I always do that. I try to be respectful and put myself on mute, and then I forget to put it back on when I need to talk. Yes, I do special needs trusts. Individuals, couples divorcing with a special needs child presents its own set of challenges. And one of those challenges is the financial security of the child long term, whether or not they'll be able to get benefits once they're no longer dependents, and even while they are dependents, whether or not the family can afford to the care for the child, the special services. So they might need government benefits that are based on income. So I help families plan for that during marriage and also upon their divorce. It's a key component and a necessity in any family, whether divorced or still married, to have protections in place for their child. Financial protections and special needs trusts is a tool to ensure that they have that.
Thank you. I'm not sure I understand this question. Can the divorce decree stipulate limits on future wills, i.e., assets from marriage going to one spouse can only be willed to the joint children, preventing my sweat equity going to future spouse and their kids?
Yeah, so I'll take this. So each state is different. So I want to make that caveat that each state is different. I don't know what happens in Alabama. I don't know what happens in Mississippi. I know Connecticut, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. So when you go through a divorce in those states, basically an estate waiver is implemented. So you release any and all claims to the other person's estate. The court generally, and I can never say definitively because there's always those off cases, but they won't order someone to put somebody else in a will. What they'll do in the divorce decree is say this asset goes to this person or this asset goes to that person. But what happens after it's really not part of the divorce process, except for what I said before about the life insurance. If there are support obligations, court's not required to, but most oftentimes they will require the party who has that obligation to maintain that life insurance to ensure those support obligations are met. That's the best answer I can give at this point.
Okay. I think that's good. And we are a little bit past the top of the hour, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you so much for joining us today for this specialty webinar, Beyond the Settlement.